had been 3 years since it had all gone down, and he had moved on from it all as well as he could. Now that he had a place of his own, away from those who contributed to these events, it was the overbearing weight of it all that had happened up until that point. Now, he had become less reclusive to society. Perhaps it was a means of forgetting these past events. But he had finally decided to open back up and rejoin the outside world. His house, which he had only recently finished building, was a good distance from the nearest city. North California was plenty hot at this time of year. He could remember that this was around the same time 3 years prior that he had been visited by an old friend of his. Owen was not usually one to dwell on the past too much, but in this case he chose to go against his better judgment. How much had happened that day. The island which he had found work all that time ago was now nothing but a wasteland, lifeless, a shadow of its former glory. All that he had left behind on that island, all that he had left of his life there was Blue, wherever she was now. But as he walked down the dirt road, he decided to put these thoughts and regrets away for the time being. There would be a time when he would take all of his troubles into account, but for now, he had to get on with his day. As he walked down the road, towards the public road before him, he could see at least 6 four-legged chihuahua-sized creatures with curved frills on their heads and beaks on their faces, squawking and chittering in the center of the pathway. Owen could identify these creatures as Microceratus, dinosaurs made by InGen as a means of creating a petting zoo back when Jurassic World was up and running. According to their field log, these dinosaurs were relative to the famous Triceratops. The animals did not seem to notice him walking towards them, as they made noises that reminded him of the sound of cicadas made as they choked, as they rubbed their wings together. One of them, which Owen believed to be a sentry, stood up on its hind legs and looked around like a meerkat. 2 of them seemed to be having a small standoff as they stared each other down and stood in defensive stances. The biggest of them stood there watching them as if it was amused by it. But Owen did not seem interested in watching them for study, as he only wished to head to town to take his mind off of things. Neither did he want to harm them. His footsteps alerted the sentry, who hooted to his 5 companions to move out of the way. After hearing its cry, the lead micro led it and the other 4 into the woods. Owen walked down the edge of the road and stopped at the nearest bus stop. He leaned against the sign as he waited for a bus to come and take him to the city. After what must have been 10 minutes of waiting, he heard the sound of a black and white bus arriving and coming to a halt before him. After the doors were opened, he entered and paid the driver to take him into the city. He then took a seat to another man whose face was mostly hidden by the fedora on his head. Owen turned his head towards the stranger. "Mind if I sit here?" "Don't mind at all," came the tired voice of the stranger. Owen could tell that this man had a gray 5 o'clock shadow and a dark brown mustache. He looked measurably older than him, and looked as if he was retired or somewhere along those lines. He also wore a light brown jacket with a dark blue t-shirt underneath. He didn't have any idea why he was wearing a jacket in the middle of summer. It made him wonder if he was trying to hide something, or if it was some kind of uniform. It took a few moments of silence as the bus drove along before Owen started talking. "So, head to the city?" "Yep," came the stranger's reply. "So am I," Owen said casually. "I live a few miles outside town in the country," I would say. "Yeah, I just wanted to get out of the house. Been stuck in there for a while and wanted to catch up on some stuff." "You know what, that's kind of the reason I'm out here as well," the man said again. "I've kind of put things on hold for too long, and I'm just trying to start back up again. Hey, whatever you got? Hope it works out." "Thanks." Soon the bus came to a stop inside the city. The stranger stood up, shook Owen's hand, and walked towards the door. This was most likely his own stop. Before he exited the bus, however, Owen called back for him. "Hey, didn't catch your name. What was it?" "Grant," the man answered. "Alan Grant."